She would love it. Yeah, she would love it.
They bought a boat and sailed on weekends to Catalina. They square danced, they entertained. They hired an architect and spent a few years building a fabulous modernist home. It was so perfectly located that highway engineers soon bulldozed it to build a 405 freeway. They moved to Westchester, and after a few years there, moved to a big hillside home in Palos Verdes, overlooking her beloved Malga Cove. When Dick went on the road as a corporate executive, she was a stay-at-home mother. When Dick ditched the corporate life to buy a small gift manufacturing business, Bandor Products, she became his partner, making sales calls and learning about typesetting to produce the company's catalogs. You'd never know it wasn't her life's dream and her professional training to be doing this work. As a mother, for the most part, she led more by inspiration than edict. But she did fret over us, as parents do. Robin was told to pull her hair out of her lovely face and sit up straight. Pat was told to smile more. And I endured being told I'd make a great scientist, writer, artist, teacher, or whatever else seemed plausible at the moment. Only now as a parent can I really appreciate how well she did. She was into us, and she was into what we did. She drove us to swim lessons, sailing lessons, Little League games, Boy Scout, Campfire Girls Orchestra, but she wasn't a soccer mom, defined by her children. She infused our lives with high culture, taking us to theater, the Hollywood Bowl, Art Museum, Shakespeare in the Park. She woke us up every morning with what I later learned was a line from Romeo and Juliet. I won't repeat it.
Oh, come on. Come on. Ryan, come on. I don't know.
Let's see if I can remember it. Night's candles are burnt out, and docking day stands tip-top on the misty mountaintops. Our house was decorated with original paintings by Johnny Saulner, bless him, so that we grew up with real art around us. She was a bit of a snob, not so much putting herself above others, but in believing that learning and culture were the foundation of a well-lived life. When we took a fancy to camping, she found us Mineral King, a glorious valley in the high Sierras. For half a dozen years, the family spent 2 weeks there every summer, with Mom handling the commissary duties with amazing logistical prowess. We met another family in the campground, the McIntoshes, and they soon joined our family social circle. Not content to send us kids off on long backpacking trips and wait around for us to return, she took my father and Liesl McIntosh burro packing over 11,000-foot peaks and into the wild backcountry. It was about 60 at that point. Then there was her flair for running our household. She was really something of a self-taught Martha Stewart with a kind of hippie, whole earth catalog style. Had she been born a few decades later, she may really have lived on the land in a commune. She experimented with local foods. We got nasturtium petals in our salads, tea made from rose hips, mustard greens on our plates, and capers made from local seeds. At Christmas time, she'd send us out to get bundles of redwood branches. We made ornaments with pine needles and hot glue. And we didn't buy things like wrapping paper if they could possibly be made. All of this made us feel extraordinary and different without feeling superior. As we left for college in our separate lives, my mother shifted her life accordingly. As a mother of grown children, she walked the difficult line between wanting to know and intruding too much. But she was very restrained, generally restrained, except when it came to sending clippings and suggesting new careers. When they finally sold Benjor, my mother began returning to writing, making a small income from publishing magazine stories, and more importantly, discovering the joys of complimentary lodging and travel. She was 74 when my father died, and what followed was a decade of freewheeling travel and burgeoning filing cabinets full of brochures, press kits, research, and stories published and unpublished. It was a gift to us as children that she pursued her own life and interests. relieving us from any feelings that we were on Earth to fulfill her needs. She spoke of traveling companions she loved, of looked forward every year to Las Condolistas, and carried on a very full social life in Palos Verdes. In some ways, we simply fit into her vast network of friends. She had her struggles as she grew older: chronic back and neck pain, bad knees, monthly bouts with what she called this darn pneumonia. 2 years ago, she finally decided to leave the big beautiful house on Via del Monte, her home for 43 years, and move into a retirement community in San Diego, near her daughter Robin. She was still sharp, she still wrote, she still planned adventures, but her thoughts curled back on themselves a bit more, her compliments varying less, and cheery farewells sounding a bit more strained. Old age isn't for sissies, she'd say over and over. Tell Ellen I love her blog, she said, about my wife's chronicle of her grandchildren's lives. And of course, you're such a good writer, Ryan, you should really write more. Her last illness was a short and steep ride. One day she was wandering around Old Town, San Diego with Robin. A few days later, she was in intensive care and beyond the reach of medicine. In the hospital, she smiled at stories, pictures, a video sent by her grandkids. She clapped to Pat's violin playing. She told a story I'd never heard before about how she became a writer. And she wrote an aunt a thank you note for a bicycle, then simply never stopped. And when a nurse would come in to move her, she'd smile her best and say thank you, barely audible. And there, boiled down to its essence, would be her grace and civility and a genuine care for others. She never wanted to be second in line to thank anyone. First she was weak but cheerful, and then just weak. As near as I can tell, her last coherent acts were to point out a beautiful sunset, and later to insist we children go out to dinner. Both acts were so completely characteristic of her, calling attention to beauty and wanting only the best for us. And then she slipped into murkier waters. It shouldn't surprise any of us that she didn't feel like staying very long in that dark gray realm between worlds. It's like an ugly hotel room with no view. She had places to go, we just can't know where. But I can't escape the feeling that right now she is over there in the corner, smiling brightly, and waiting for the chance to say, Ryan, you're such a good writer, you should write more. And I want to say to her, thank you, Mom, for giving me such an interesting world to live in and to write about, and for opening my eyes to see it. Love you, Mom. Whoever wants to go next?